the times were, the period was one in which hysteria was mounting. There were indictments of, like the indictments of the Rosenbergs for nuclear espionage, and that was the culmination of a series of scares on the atom bomb, so on, which the United States was the only country in the world which had detonated it, but once the fact of detonation of the atom bomb had come out, why, it was no longer a secret. And any event, hysteria was high.
What do you think? I mean, on some level, it's very obvious what the hysteria came out of. But what is? I'd be very interested what you think specifically was the source and the fuel for this hysteria. Why did this happen in this country? Why didn't more national minds prevail?
Well, in the first place, to answer that really correctly requires a little bit of historical perspective. You know, you have to go back and recognize that the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 or 18, depends upon what your calendar is, the Bolshevik Revolution threw a tremendous scare into the world. So it wasn't something that just started in the so-called McCarthy period. This is something that had been on the burner for a long time. There was a general strike in Seattle, which occurred not on the basis of any socialist revolution, but because people were out of jobs, out of work, and their pay were being cut right and left after the end of World War I. But the general strike was regarded, you'd think, as the commencement of not the Bolshevik Revolution, but the new American Bolshevik Revolution, and treated as such. You've read probably Anna Louise Strong's accounts of that and others. And that had been simmering for a long time, and that was at the bottom, underlying this, the fear which exists today of the concept of socialism. And of course, people nowadays say, well, that's all in the past, it's been destroyed. And it just exists in little bits and patches over the rest of the world. Well, as Fidel Castro said, history will absolve me, and as Cuba will be a test of what's going to happen. Is it dead, as they say, or is something that's ongoing and continuing? In any event, that hysteria lay at the bottom of it, but it had been enormously stimulated by the media seizing upon the horror of the atomic bomb and the fact that our enemy, the Soviet Union, might have or might be able to or was going to acquire it. And this began just prior to these hearings, and little un-American activities hearings sprang up all over the country, all over the world, not all over the world, but all over the United States, and culminated, if you will, with, of course, Joe McCarthy's seizing the opportunity of the time and bringing communism right into the Pentagon, and deciding that the State Department and the Pentagon itself were hotbeds of communist spies. In any event, this was the atmosphere that prevailed, and it was a scary atmosphere.